Hello, and welcome to our session today on managing SaaS costs in the age of AI. We're very grateful for you to take time out of your busy days to join us, and we hope to make the most of this conversation. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started here. For one, if you look over to the right-hand side, you should have a Q&A section. This is going to be the primary way for you to ask questions for our presenter today. We'll do our best to hit on the questions as they come in, but we'll likely have to wait till towards the end of the conversation for our formal Q&A time to allow Ben to work through his presentation. But if you have a question, please use the Q&A because that question will also get documented and recorded for our records. So if there's a chance that we don't get to it for today's session, we'll be able to follow up with you and get you your answer for your question. So please use the Q&A. If you have general responses or things you want to share, the chat works great as well. But if you've got a question, we recommend you put it into the Q&A. For everyone who registered for today's event, and of course for all of you in attendance, we will be following on with the recording of today's session. That typically comes within the first 24 hours, and you should expect to see that early in your inbox tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. Just a little bit of an introduction here on today's session. The way we're buying software now, the way software is being managed is changing fundamentally. The explosion of AI that's happening is really changing the enterprise stack in ways that it's introducing new visibility challenges and new risks. And this is a real challenge for IT, SAM, ITAM, FinOps leaders. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be really talking about what does this shift look like? What do you need to be prepared for? And how you can get your arms around it in a meaningful way with a little bit of a preview to what Zylo is doing specifically to help folks manage their AI and consumption spend. So with that said, I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce today's speaker. Ben Pippenger is a co-founder of Zylo and is now our VP of Strategic Partnerships. He's been in this B2B SaaS space for over 20 years in leadership roles, including roles at Salesforce and ExactTarget. He has a deep background in helping our clients build SaaS management programs with firsthand experience helping enterprise companies get control and visibility of their SaaS portfolios. He's led the product development on the consumption capabilities that we're going to talk a little bit more about today in the Zylo platform. So he is really well equipped to have this conversation with you all. He works very closely with industry analysts and other thought leaders in the space to get a perspective on what's happening in the broader market and bring that intelligence back to Zylo internally, but also to share that with all of you as clients and folks who are just interested in SaaS management and AI and consumption management. Ben is also very active in the FinOps Foundation, where Zylo is a member as well. And he has been a speaker at previous FinOps X conferences. So with all that said, I'm going to pull Ben onto the stage and let him get started with today's presentation.
Hey everybody, and thank you, Chris, for that great introduction. Let me go ahead and I'm going to share my presentation here with you all. Just one sec, sorry about that. Okay, I think we should be set. Get myself organized here. All right. Well, as Chris alluded to, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate that you're spending the time with us. I've had the opportunity to do a number of webinars here at Zylo, which have all been great, of course, but I think this one is one of the more exciting ones, primarily because I see this shift happening, and I think it's the biggest shift in what we all do, really, since SaaS came around when we first saw software as a service become a major thing that teams are trying to solve for. So I think there's a lot to do, a lot to learn, and I'm excited to share with you sort of our progress that we're doing here at Zylo so far. So from an agenda perspective, there's really sort of 5 key things we'll cover off on today. First is how AI is changing SaaS pricing and the cost dynamics involved with that. Next, we'll talk about the shift from seat-based applications to usage-driven pricing models. Then we'll talk about the growing gap in visibility and control and why that's causing real problems. I'll talk a little bit about the convergence that we're seeing between software asset management, SaaS management, and FinOps. And then I'll close out, as Chris alluded to, on some ways that we're seeing teams managing this today, and even some new capabilities that are now available on the Zylo platform to do consumption management. So exciting topic. So let's get rolling here. So before I sort of talk about the future, let's sort of talk about how you manage SaaS today. So this should look pretty familiar to a lot of you here today. There have been a few different flavors of SaaS pricing over the course of time, but the dominant pricing strategy is some form of per user, per seat-based pricing. You're buying seats for end users, and you're typically locked into the minimum number of seats that you purchase or you buy for sort of the life of your contract, or maybe for a year. It's pretty straightforward to forecast what needs look like. It goes right along with your sort of company's headcount plan. And if you need more licenses, your vendors are typically very happy to sell you more. Or if you're in some sort of true-up situation, they hit you up during that true-up window. Generally, you focus in on optimization of your licenses either at the renewal, going through one of those true-ups, or before you go buy more licenses. This is very well tested and a functional playbook that we see many, many clients at Zylo run today. It works because it's fairly predictable. But I think, as you all know, that's all changing. AI is being embedded into nearly every major SaaS product that you use. A few examples you see on the slide here are Slack's AI feature, which I personally use every single day to find information that's buried deep in my conversations that I have across Zylo. We're also seeing how copilots being set right inside of the Microsoft Office suite, as well as Atlassian Intelligence into the Atlassian suite of products. AI is now a feature, it's not a category, and every SaaS app is pretty much becoming AI powered in some way. And that is fundamentally changing SaaS. These new AI capabilities come with a whole new cost model for your SaaS vendors, and that new cost model is literally eating into your software vendors' margins. And ideally, on the flip side, your SaaS applications should also come with a whole new level of value to you, the buyer, in the form of outcomes and work delivered. A level of value that you pay for. If you think this shift is just a passing phase, look at what the market is saying. Now, these aren't my words or Zylo's words up on the screen right now. This is Andreessen Horowitz. This is Business Insider. They're using words like upending and the end of the per seat license. The smartest money in tech is telling us that the flat rate SaaS era is over and the pay-as-you-go consumption era is already here. AI is truly upending SaaS pricing. Now let's take a look at some examples. In general, we can bucket pricing models in 1 of 3 ways: pure seat, hybrid, or consumption. Pure seat is what we've all grown accustomed to. You buy a seat for an employee to use that app. Your spend generally scales with the number of people that work at your company. Hybrid are seat-based apps that have some sort of consumption metric tied to them. That could be a quantity of tokens or a unit of work that is measured based on an outcome. Again, spend generally scales with the number of employees. However, you could be buying more capacity for specific users that need it, or you may be impacted by overages in some cases. Consumption apps are pay for what you use. There's no seat that you're paying for in this model. You'll see your data warehouses, your SIEMs, your foundational AI models, and the like in the pure consumption category. Now let's take a look at an example and double click into Anthropic's pricing for Claude and for their API. Even with the same vendor, there are different models. So on the left-hand side of the slide here on the screen is Claude's seat-based model. This gives you access to chat, which you probably use, Cowork, and Claude Code, which a lot of teams are using these days. It's a per-user subscription with usage caps. Those caps come in the form of usage limits, which are determined by the length and the complexity of your conversations, the features you use, and which Claude model you're interacting with. There are different ways that usage caps can be negotiated so your users aren't just blocked from doing work, including going into extra usage, which typically is charged at a standard rate versus your negotiated rate. On the right-hand side is the Claude API. In this model, you're generally pay per token. Different models input output, real-time versus batch, all play a role in how many tokens are used for each API call. For enterprise agreements, in this model, you negotiate based off of a committed spend. So when you have that sort of model, you have a committed spend model, you need to know what you committed to and track your usage associated with your cost commitments to ensure you spend the full amount, as well as track if you're going to go over your commitment and are going to need to find some more budget. So that's pretty complex for just one vendor. That's just one vendor. And so this is me trying to manage that vendor and really trying to understand it. So there's plenty more complexity as well as you get into the details here and consider interacting with foundational models for your cloud platform and all the different ways that these things cost you money. So no one wants to have to grow a third arm. As you can see, I've grown here to swipe credit cards, apparently paying Bitcoin, which I'm doing on my shoulder there, or give up a kidney to pay for your company's cloud seats, which looks like that software potentially is recommending me do. So no one wants to do that. So we need to figure out a way how to manage this for Anthropic, but then also more broadly for every app that we're bringing into our ecosystem. So this shift to consumption pricing may feel chaotic right now, but we have actually seen this exact movie before. If you want to know where SaaS pricing is going, let's look what happened with data centers. So let's think back to the 2000s. If you wanted to run software, you had to buy the physical server and you had to buy the perpetual software license. It was all CapEx. You depreciated the hardware, you amortized the software, and you took on massive upfront risk about guessing your future capacity. The result, huge inefficiencies and idle hardware. Then the cloud came along and saved us from those inefficiencies, apparently. We moved from CapEx to OpEx. We stopped buying servers and started renting compute. We stopped buying software and started renting seats, aka SaaS. But it wasn't perfect. We solved the upfront risk, but we created a new kind of waste, shelfware. We ended up paying flat rates for human licenses and cloud capacity we weren't actually using. Which brings us to today. AI is forcing the next massive evolution. With AI, software and compute are merging. Every time an AI agent completes a task, it burns cloud compute. Vendors can no longer afford to sell you a flat rate seat. And more importantly, you shouldn't want to buy one. We are moving from paying for the potential to do work, aka the seat, to paying for the actual work completed, which is the token, the task, or the outcome. So just like cloud forced us to stop paying for empty servers, AI is forcing us to stop paying for empty software seats. Zero waste, pay only for what you use. And if you aren't feeling this now, you certainly will. This data is from a report from McKinsey from September of 2025. It's highlighting how software companies are upgrading their business models. The vast majority of AI native apps aren't using seat-based models, focusing more on pure consumption, outcomes, or capacity-based licensing. For the incumbents, they found that 32% of them are using non-seat-based licensing already. And that's from September. So I bet that number has grown in the past 6 months that have passed since they published this. IDC shared an even bolder perspective in their report from October, stating that by 2028, pure seat-based pricing would be obsolete. AI agents become the digital workers getting the job done. This will force 70% of your software vendors to refactor their value and their pricing model. Huge, huge shift. Now let's look at some of Zylo's own data. So if you're not familiar, we produce an annual report every year called the SaaS Management Index. It takes an aggregated and anonymized view of over $90 billion in SaaS and cloud spend data. Our report for 2026 showed that on average, organizations spent over 100% more on AI native applications in 2025 than they did in 2024. In the enterprise, that number took a huge jump to 393%. So that spend is real and it's definitely growing. All of this change and all of the increase in spend comes with a huge visibility problem. There is no standard way to measure usage, forcing SAM and IT teams to become experts in pricing models and how apps are used to make sense of it all. Second, there is no visibility into the cost drivers that are driving that cost up. What are you doing to cause that cost? What are you doing to drive that outcome? Third, there's no reliable way to forecast spend. How do I know where I'm going to end up? Am I going to be within whatever I purchased? Am I going to be over my cost commitment? Am I going to be under it? And fourth, there is no consistent way to govern it. So this huge visibility problem is creating a massive financial risk for IT leaders and for organizations in general. From our survey in Zylo SaaS Management Index this year, where we surveyed 200 plus IT leaders, we found that 78% of IT leaders encountered unexpected charges tied to AI or consumption pricing. 61% cut projects due to unplanned SaaS cost increases in the past 12 months, and 79% encountered price increases at renewal. So what does all this mean? That means that SaaS management is changing. It's fundamentally changing. But how, you may ask? So let's take a look at this table up here where we're comparing seat-based SaaS to AI and consumption-based SaaS. So on the left-hand side, you can see seat-based SaaS, where seat-based SaaS value is tied to access, so pricing is per seat. Because seats map to people, usage is human-driven. That means spend scales with headcount, making costs predictable, so governance can happen at renewal. For consumption, value is tied to outcomes, so pricing is based on usage. Because usage can come from both humans and agents, it is highly variable, and spend is no longer directly tied to headcount. This makes costs fluctuate, so governance has to happen continuously. So let's take what I think is the most important row here, and it's that bottom one. If you look at that last row, governance timing, this is really the shift. Traditionally with SaaS, there were three moments that mattered: the renewal, a true-up, or buying more licenses. Generally, you could drive cost savings and avoidance at those moments. With consumption, this moves to near real-time oversight. When technology requires this level of oversight, it starts to look a lot like the cloud and what your FinOps teams have been doing for years. So this is why SaaS management and FinOps are converging. I want to be clear though, I don't mean converging in the sense that one is overtaking the other, at least not yet. Each program delivers unique value and outcomes to their specific user. But the skills that each team possess are beginning to be required by the other. SaaS management platforms will still help ITAM and SAM teams understand what is being used by who, drive optimization, and instill governance for seat-based, hybrid, and consumption-based SaaS. FinOps platforms will still help your business track the value of your cloud resources, and they will extend into platform as a service and AI. Together, they provide the full picture of one of your largest and growing spend categories across cloud, AI, SaaS, and platform as a service. This convergence is breaking down silos and driving shared operating models. The FinOps Foundation, which Chris mentioned earlier that we're a member of, is an independent, not-for-profit that creates standards, guidelines, and builds community for FinOps practitioners. They continue to expand their mission and recently expanded from cloud to cover all technology spend, and has updated their framework so that it can be applied to AI and SaaS, among other areas of tech spend. You all need to be creating shared operating models and practices to streamline how this works. You need to remove visibility gaps, and you need to build a system to operate efficiently as your AI and hybrid SaaS spend continues to grow. Now, what this looks like is a spectrum. The FinOps Foundation talks about crawl, walk, run here. There's not one single correct strategy or answer. It all depends on your organization, your culture, and how you're structured. And we see all flavors of this working with our clients at Zylo. From teams that are operating in silos still, to teams where SaaS management and FinOps are one and the same. If you're in the siloed bucket, you need to start moving to the right of this slide now. If you stay siloed, the speed of variable AI consumption will overrun your budgets before your teams even realize who owns the spend. So how do you do that? How do you get started? Again, I mentioned the FinOps Foundation on the previous slide. I'd strongly recommend visiting their website. they have a ton of great content and tools to help you understand and how to begin that transformation. So let's talk a little bit about what SaaS management teams need to be doing in order to get their arms around consumption-based SaaS. So there's 4 key areas. The first is monitoring usage trends. You need to understand what your historical usage looks like so you can begin to understand how that will shape the future. Next is forecasting your future spend and usage. So using your historical trends, you need to be able to forecast where you're going to end up at the end of your contract period. Are you going to hit your spend commitments? Are you going to be in an overage situation? Will you find yourself paying those overage bills, incurring costs that you have not budgeted for? Third, you need to set alerts. It's pretty much impossible to keep track of all of this in the new near real-time world. You have to set alerts to be notified when spikes occur or when your forecast is over what you expected. And lastly, you need to break down your usage. You need to get visibility to who is using what and how. This lets you see which projects are costing the business the most and assists in understanding if a spike in usage is an anomaly or potentially it's the new norm that you need to plan for. So these key use cases come to life in Zylo's new consumption management solution. So I want to give you a warning here. I'm going to walk you through a very fast demo. It's super quick. The demo will highlight how a team can use Zylo to gain visibility in their use of Anthropic's API. So I'll show you a couple things. First, I'm going to show you what our spend is versus our committed spend. Again, enterprise agreements for Anthropic's API are commitment-based. So if you commit to $2 million in spend, they're going to charge you at least that much and more if you go over that. Next, I'm going to show you how Zylo and what Zylo is forecasting from where your spend is going to end up at the end of your contract term. Third, we'll look at the cost data by project to see which project is driving the most cost. I'll then look at the cost by model to see which models we're using, again, driving the most cost. 5, I'll dig into the specific charges that we are seeing so we can look in that observability side to break down that usage to understand what's going on in a better lens. And then lastly and finally, I'll show you how easy it is to create an ongoing alert that will trigger either a Slack, a Teams, create a Jira ticket, or send you an email. So I've got 6 things to cover in about a 1-minute animated GIF. So if you're not paying attention, please pay attention now so you can watch this. All right, so on the screen here, you can see we're in the Anthropic instance in Zylo. You can see what our total build cost is, what our projected cost is at 2.7, our commitment's 2 million, and that we're 57% to our commitment. Below that, you can see what our total is and what our forecast looks like. That yellow line's the forecast line as that's going up. I'm going to look at that data in a couple different views. The first is by workspace. So as I toggle over, I can all of a sudden see that my engineering team has spiked their use in about February. Surprise, surprise, engineers are using Claude Code. Makes a lot of sense. I'll look by model now as well. And again, I can see that we had a spike when Anthropic released the Opus model, Opus 4.5 model. It's a pretty expensive model. Let me click into that to understand exactly what's going on. I can sort that to see, it looks like engineering, again, is using that model. So that gives me guidance to go say, hey, engineering, is that the right model for you to be using? Is that something we need to plan for with our commitment with them? And then lastly, I'm able to set an alert. So I click that create consumption alert button up there, pre-formats. I'm going to set an alert to notify me once we get to 90% of our commitment forecast. So that's set up. And once that's set, I would be alerted either again on email, Slack, Teams, or the ability to create a Jira ticket for a team to take action. So pretty robust set of capabilities, specifically in this demo for Anthropic. I do want to plug, we're going to have another webinar towards the end of April that Chris will talk about here at the end of our presentation, where we'll go into a lot more depth on these capabilities and really dive into the intricacies of how the new consumption management product works. So 4 key things I want to hit on this consumption management solution and for what it's designed to do. It's designed to solve the most pressing needs of SAM and ITAM teams as they are taking on AI and consumption pricing. First is to help you avoid billing surprises by tracking spend as it happens. Next, we'll catch shifts in usage early enough to respond so you don't just get caught flat-footed. Third, you'll be able to anticipate future spend based on previous usage trends. And then lastly, we'll be able to investigate what's driving changes in spend. And I'm pleased to share that we are currently supporting the following platforms with this solution: OpenAI's API, Anthropic's API, which I just showed you, Gemini's API, Databricks, and Snowflake, with many more coming in the weeks and months. So to wrap things up, I have 3 key takeaways for you. Number 1, in the age of AI, SaaS costs scale with usage, not headcount. Second, SaaS spend is becoming more variable and harder to predict. And lastly, managing SaaS requires the same discipline companies use to manage their cloud spend. So I'll kick it over to Chris here to wrap things up for us.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. And we do have quite a few questions to work through here that I'll start sharing here in just a moment. But for everyone here in attendance today, we do encourage you to continue our conversation. One way that you can stay engaged around this topic is we are having an additional webinar in April on the 28th, where we will be taking a deep dive into the Zylo platform. Ben gave us a little bit of a preview with his video, but we'll actually be spending time in the platform showing multiple examples of how our consumption solution works and addresses use cases that are top of mind for you. So please mark your calendars for that. We'll be sharing information on how to register shortly. We will be following up with a recording of the webinar. Whether you're a client or a potential client of Zylo, and you can respond to any of the emails that come your way if you would like to continue the conversation. So for clients, it'll be your SAE team that you'll want to follow on with, and if you're not a client yet, we will be proactively reaching out to see if you have any questions. But you can also always, of course, request a demo of this capability on Zylo.com and that top right button to request a demo. So lots of ways to stay engaged. We're going to follow on with the recording, and we've got a follow-on webinar where we dive into more detail about this. And of course, we're going to be proactively reaching out to you in case you have any interest in continuing the conversation. So thank you everyone for your time today. Like I said, we do have quite a few questions here. I'm going to try and start in the order they were received. Robbie, you had one specifically about DLP in regards to the DPA of most of our contracts. I'm not sure if that one's tied directly to consumption. It looks like it may be a little bit more of a product roadmap question. Your question is documented. It will not go away. We have it. We will have our team follow up with you to get you an answer on that one. I apologize that we can't give you one live here today. Joe Thomas, you asked, will you share slides after the webinar? When we reach out to you, please request the slides, and our team will do our best to get you a copy of those slides. But slides will not be sent out to everyone who registered. But if you request, we can see what we can do. Another question that came in, Ben, given the number of vendors implementing some sort of consumption-based pricing into their license model, how does Zylo plan to address this at scale?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Colin asked that question, so thanks for the question, Colin. So a couple ways. I mean, direct integrations are, again, similar to seat-based stuff, the primary way, the preferred way that we want to do it. And so if those APIs are available, we will be targeting those integrations to be built out. I think on the flip side of that as well, if you guys are familiar with FinOps, they have a standard called Focus. The Focus standard is a standard for cost and usage data that the hyperscalers already comply with. And then we're hoping we see a big shift in the SaaS providers also complying with that Focus standard, which gives you a standard export and standard format to get a lot of the data that we would want to help power some of this, maybe not all of it all the time. But that's another option. So we're continuing to build this out. And we want to cover as many of these consumption apps as possible. And that'll be every app here in the near future. So that's our desire, and that's what our strategy is.
Thank you, Ben. And thanks for the question, Colin. Melissa asks, I've seen many, including Anthropic, charging seat-based plus usage fees. So for enterprises licensing, you pay $20 for a seat, plus the usage tied to that, plus the cost of all the tokens consumed. We keep having to negotiate the seat fee away. Is this something that you think will be standard in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we see very similar models between like Anthropic and OpenAI as just two examples where, if you look at their pricing, they have a seat-based model, and that's going to be like for OpenAI, it's for ChatGPT, it's for Codex. You're going to pay a per seat, and then there's different tiers of those seats, and those tiers get you capacity. So capacity meaning I can do a lot more as an end user. I'm not going to hit some sort of throttle on my tokens. So a lot of times you'll have engineers that have sort of the highest level seat so that they can code away and not have any issues with being throttled back. I have heard of cases in that model where they don't just throttle you back; they could roll you into, like I said, extra usage. So it wouldn't stop an engineer from doing work if they hit their ceiling, but there would be fees incurred as a result of that. So that's sort of on the seat-based side, and I don't expect that to go away. They're still going to have sort of that hybrid model for end users using ChatGPT or using Claude.ai or Claude Code or Claude Cowork to get their jobs done. On the flip side, you have the API pricing model, and that's going to be based off an API key. So you create that API key inside of OpenAI's platform or inside of Anthropic's platform, and then any activity that you have against that key is going to be charged a consumption rate. And those are those cost commitment contracts that I spoke to. So in that realm, you have to, if you go into enterprise agreement with Anthropic, you have to say, hey, this is what we think we're going to spend. They'll discount accordingly. So they'll give you discounts based off of whatever your commitment level is. And that's what they're going to charge you. They'll charge you as you're using it. And at the end of your term, if you haven't used it all, you'll get a balloon payment at the end, which probably nobody wants. If you use it all up 6 months in, you're going to get, charged whatever the negotiated rate is for sort of the ongoing future of that relationship. So hopefully that answers your question. I think that was Melissa that asked that. So I do think that's going to continue forward as long as we have sort of humans interacting with these systems. There'll be some sort of hybrid-based pricing.
Great, thanks for that, Ben. Gosh, we've got a lot here in one that seems to be tied to pricing, and I've misplaced it, but basically they asked, okay, will this be included in the standard subscription fee, I'm assuming for Zylo, and will this also cover OpenAI, Copilot, and Cursor?
Yeah, good question. We can definitely connect you with your SAE. If you're a current client, there are some things we're doing right now to make sure you can get access to this with no additional fees for a period of time. So you should definitely reach out to your SAE for any sort of pricing conversations or things along those lines. Second part of that question was, will this support Cursor, ChatGPT? What was the other one, Chris? I'm sorry.
OpenAI.
OpenAI. Yeah, so OpenAI will support OpenAI's API. So ChatGPT, it's all based off API availability. And at the moment, unfortunately, OpenAI and Anthropic don't have an API available for ChatGPT or Claude seat usage. We're hoping that changes here in the short term. But you can't expect hybrid-based support. So I showed you in our demo, we walked through sort of the cost commitment, API consuming tokens that equal that cost commitment. So that would be for Anthropic's API, for OpenAI's API. We are building hybrid support as well. So similar perspective where you'll be able to see at the user level who's taking up a seat, and then whatever the consumption metric is, how much of that they're using, that they're allocated to as part of that seat.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks everyone for these questions. This is
keep coming.
I love the engagement. So another one, would we be able to set a different type of alert based on the utilization usage? For example, a specific alert to catch any anomaly, such as a huge spike that can be caused by one project only, but this huge spike would not be huge when compared to the overall usage. So it sounds like some very customized alerts is the question here. Yeah, we should be able to. We should definitely. I'm not sure who asked that question, but we should be able to. But we should definitely go through that use case with you to make sure that that's all the data is there and that we can power it accordingly. You saw in that demo, I know it was very fast, so I apologize for the quickness of that. But when you create the consumption alert, it does have pre-formatted alerts there that you can select from. There's 6 or 7 of them, I think, in the dropdown that you then configure and can set up. But being able to run an automation just like you do today with any data grid, I think we could power the example that you shared. So we should just talk through that use case with you to make sure that specific thing is possible. Yep. Great. Let me double check in the Q&A side and make sure there's no new ones there. I think we've hit on all the questions. But really genuinely, thank you all so much for the engagement. Makes the conversation so much better when we've got questions like this. For those of you who asked about a slide, you will be getting an email with the recording of this webinar. Respond to that email. Let us know what the organization you're with. If you're a current client, you'll get access to the slides, absolutely. If you're not a client right now, we'll have the conversation to get you the slides. Just reply to the email from the recording, and we'll get that process going. Very genuinely appreciate everybody's time here today. Obviously, what's happening with AI and consumption is a very fundamental shift for software, and we have been planning on this for over a year and building the solution, and Ben's been kind of leading the charge. So very exciting time here for Zylo and for software in general, and we appreciate your engagement, your time here, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.